It was supposed to be a dumb dare. Sneak into the CEO's office, take a picture, and get out. That was it. No one said anything about spilled drinks, space heaters, or being caught naked by Adrian freaking Vale. The plan had been going fine until the whiskey I was nursing slipped from my hand and splashed down my shirt. Ice cold, sticky, and absolutely visible, I swore under my breath, tugging at the fabric. I couldn't walk back through the party looking like I'd lost a wet t-shirt contest. That's when I saw it. The small portable heater glowing in the corner of the office jackpot. I locked the door behind me, stripped off my shirt, and hung it in front of the heater. 2 minutes. That's all I needed. 2 minutes and I'd be gone. Then came the sound. Footsteps. Slow, measured, getting closer. Panic hit like a punch to the gut. The door handle turned. My brain short-circuited. I grabbed my shirt, realized it was still soaked, dropped it again, and dove for the only hiding spot in the room, the walk-in storage closet. I barely managed to pull the door shut when the office door clicked open. Silence. Then the faint rustle of papers, a sigh, the sound of someone moving toward the desk. My heart was pounding so loud, it felt like the whole damn building could hear it. Sweat rolled down my back. The air was too tight, too hot, too... The closet door swung open, and there he was, Adrian Vale. Every rumor about him suddenly felt like an understatement. He looked exactly how you'd imagine a man who ran an empire to look. Crisp black suit, rolled up sleeves, eyes that made you forget how to breathe. He froze for half a second, taking me in. Me, crouched, wide-eyed, and very, very naked. Time stopped. His gaze flicked from my face, down to my very unfortunate lack of clothes, and back up again. He didn't even look shocked, just curious, like he'd caught a particularly strange animal in his office. I can explain, I blurted out, voice way too high. He tilted his head slightly, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Good, he murmured, because I'd love to hear how breaking into your boss's office naked makes sense. That smirk, calm, deliberate, made something twist in my stomach. God. Of course, my boss would sound hot while catching me committing career suicide. I stood there, trying to form a sentence. Any sentence. Okay, so it's not what it looks like. He arched a brow. Really? Because it looks interesting. My brain screamed run, but my body refused to move. He took a slow step closer, and I swear the temperature in the room went up 10 degrees. Didn't realize company policy allowed. Midnight streaking, he said softly. It's not streaking. I, spilled my drink. The heater. I was just drying off in my office, he supplied, voice rich with amusement. I opened my mouth, closed it again. Somewhere, my dignity was waving a tiny white flag. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose like he couldn't decide whether to laugh or fire me. Then, unexpectedly, he chuckled. Low. Dangerous. You know, most employees just send me an email when they need something. I blinked. I didn't think you'd respond. You'd be surprised what I respond to, he said, eyes sweeping over me again, before he turned slightly. And then, the sound of a soft click. He'd just locked the office door. My stomach dropped. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, gaze steady. All right, he said, voice smooth as glass. You've got 30 seconds. Impress me with your explanation. And that was the exact moment I realized two things. One, I might still get fired. Two, part of me wasn't entirely sure I wanted to leave. Flashback 6 months earlier. When I first joined Vale & Co., I thought my biggest problem would be surviving the workload. Turns out, my biggest problem was my boss, Adrian Vale. The man, the myth, the walking HR violation in a 3-piece suit. He wasn't mean, not exactly just unreadable. Everyone on the floor called him the Ice King. Not because he was cruel, but because nothing ever rattled him. Miss a deadline. He'd stare you down until your soul left your body. nail a presentation, you'd get a single nod of approval. Maybe a good work if he was feeling generous. Still, I couldn't help it. There was something magnetic about him. The way he carried himself, like he'd already done everything twice and perfected it both times. He didn't speak much, but when he did, the room fell silent. And when his gaze landed on me across the conference table for the first time, yeah, I felt it. Like a current under my skin. I was a junior marketing associate, one of about 20 fresh out of college, still figuring out how to look confident holding a latte I couldn't afford. Adrian was way out of my league, older, established, with that kind of quiet power that made you forget how to stand up straight. We didn't talk much at first, but every time we did, I left the conversation feeling like he'd seen right through me, and then decided not to comment on what he found. The first time he gave me direct feedback, it was on a campaign draft I'd spent all night on. He read it silently, then said, "You're overcomplicating it. Simplicity sells." I wanted to defend it, argue that creativity mattered. But he'd already moved on to the next page, saying, "You have good instincts, Tyler. You just need to trust them instead of trying to impress people." That was the thing about him. Even his criticism sounded like a compliment if you listened hard enough. After that, we talked more. Work stuff mostly, strategy, brand direction, all the usual corporate buzzwords. But sometimes, I'd catch something softer, like when he stayed late and offered me coffee because I know the vending machine tastes like regret. Or when I got sick for a week, and he sent a message through HR reminding me to rest, adding at the end, "The project can wait. Health can't." It wasn't flirty. It was professional. Mostly. But there were moments, tiny, stupid ones, that got under my skin. The way his hand brushed mine when he handed over files. The rare smile that made me forget my name. The one when he leaned over my chair to fix a graph on my screen, close enough for his cologne to knock rational thought out of my brain. Everyone said Adrian didn't do relationships. He was all business, all focus, and I believed that, until the night of the company's annual gala. He was different that night, not in a tux, but in a perfectly fitted black suit, glass in hand, laughing softly at something one of the execs said. I remember thinking how unfair it was that someone like him could look that good and still act like he didn't notice. When he caught me staring, he didn't look away. Just the slightest tilt of his head, like he was daring me to keep looking. That was the first time I realized he noticed me. And maybe that was the beginning of my mistake, because after that, I started noticing him more. How he loosened his tie when he thought no one was watching. How he always checked the conference room windows before meetings. How he sometimes stayed until 2 a.m., the light under his office door spilling into the hallway. There was a loneliness in him, buried deep under all that control. And I think part of me wanted to understand it, maybe even break it. So yeah, when my friends dared me that night to sneak into his office, it wasn't just about the stupid photo. It was about curiosity, about temptation, about the quiet, unspoken question I'd been too afraid to ask for months. What happens when the Ice King finally melts? Flashback ends. Back to present. The silence stretched so long, I could hear my heartbeat bouncing off the walls. Adrian didn't move, didn't yell, didn't even look angry. He just studied me. Every instinct screamed at me to start talking, to say something, anything. But my mouth had apparently joined the witness protection program. He took one slow step closer, the sound of his shoes echoing against the polished floor. Then another. "You could run," he said quietly. "But I'm curious what you'll do instead." The way he said it, calm, low, almost amused, made the back of my neck burn. Like he wasn't just talking about this moment, like he was daring me. I swallowed hard, forcing my brain to function. I didn't mean to break into my office, get naked in my closet. His tone was light, but there was a sharpness underneath it, the kind that made people twice my age sweat during board meetings. He wasn't angry. He was intrigued, and that was somehow worse. He crossed the room to the heater, my soaked shirt still hanging there, steam curling around the edges. He plucked it off, inspected it, and then looked at me again, eyes dragging over me in a way that made my breath stutter. "You were drying this?" I nodded, too fast. "Yes, I spilled my drink at the party upstairs. I swear I wasn't trying to—" "Steal corporate secrets?" he finished, a tiny smile ghosting over his mouth. Shame. That would have been a better story. He turned away before I could respond, reached for something on the coat rack, and came back holding his suit jacket, black, tailored, expensive enough to pay my rent. He held it out to me, one brow raised. "Put it on." I blinked. "What?" "Unless you plan on explaining yourself while naked." My face went up in flames. I grabbed the jacket and slipped into it as fast as humanly possible. It swallowed me whole. Soft fabric, warm from his body, smelling like cedar, and something darker I couldn't name. When I finally dared to look up, he was watching me again, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Better," he said simply. For a second, I thought maybe he'd call security, or at least HR, but instead, he just leaned against the desk, head tilting slightly. "You know," he said, voice soft but deliberate, "I don't usually tolerate surprises in my office." "Yeah, no, I figured," I muttered. He smiled. "And yet, here you are." That smile, the faintest curl of his lips, was lethal. It wasn't kindness. It was curiosity wrapped in control. He let the silence hang again, and I couldn't tell if he was deciding whether to fire me or frame me. Finally, he straightened, walked past me to the door, and, to my utter confusion, opened it. Then he looked back over his shoulder. "Go home, Tyler." I froze. You're not firing me?" "Not tonight." He gave me one last unreadable look, then added, "We'll discuss this on Monday." And then he smiled, just enough to make it worse. Before walking past me into the hallway, I stood there for a long moment, clutching his jacket, heart still pounding like a trapped bird. The office felt smaller now, too quiet. And as I caught my reflection in the dark glass of his window, messy hair, flushed skin, wearing my boss's coat, I realized two things. One, I wasn't fired. And two, that might actually be a bigger problem, because I hadn't just been caught, I'd been noticed. And something about the way he'd said Monday made it sound a whole lot like a promise. Monday, I'd spent the whole weekend waiting for an email that never came. Every notification, every buzz of my phone made my stomach twist. By Sunday night, I'd already written and deleted 3 different apology drafts. By Monday morning, I'd convinced myself I was getting fired. I even dressed for it. Clean shirt, neat hair, resignation energy radiating off me. When the elevator doors opened to the 26th floor, my co-workers were already buzzing, caffeine and gossip mixed in equal parts. I tried to walk straight to my desk, head down, pretending I didn't feel the phantom weight of my boss's coat from that night. Except the whispers followed me. "Did you see Tyler leaving with Mr. Vale Friday night?" "No way. I swear, he had his coat." I wanted to sink through the floor. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd just wait to be called in, take the scolding, the termination, whatever came next. But by noon, nothing. No email, no HR call. No, Adrian Vale is storming through my workspace like corporate judgment incarnate. He was in his office, door open, talking calmly to someone from finance, like he hadn't found me naked in his closet 3 nights ago. I was halfway through a sad sandwich when I got the email. Subject: about last night. No body text, just that. My heart stopped. I looked around like someone would explain it to me, but everyone else was buried in spreadsheets. I clicked it open, only to find a single sentence. "You left your shirt. It's on my chair." I nearly choked. There was no signature, no formal tone, Just that quiet confidence that sounded exactly like his voice in my head. I typed out a reply. "Thank you, sir, I'll pick it up." Then deleted it. Rewrote it. Deleted it again. Eventually, I closed the email entirely and decided pretending it didn't exist was my safest option. That illusion lasted all of 10 minutes. "Tyler!" His voice came from right behind me, smooth and low, and I swear I jumped a full foot in the air. I turned slowly. Adrian stood there, suit crisp, tie loose, one hand in his pocket like he'd just wandered over for fun. "Morning," I said, aiming for casual but landing somewhere between squeaky and guilty. He looked me over, eyes flicking to the folder I was pretending to work on. "Busy?" "Just finishing a report," I lied. "Badly." "Good." He leaned a little closer, his cologne cutting through the coffee smell in the air. "Relax, you're jumpy." I forced a laugh. "Yeah, well, kind of hard not to be after, you know." His mouth twitched. "After what?" He knew exactly what Friday night, I said under my breath. "Ah," he murmured. "Right. That." He didn't move away. Instead, he set a file on my desk, fingers brushing mine just long enough to mess with my breathing. "You'll want to look at that before the meeting," he said. Then, as he turned to leave, he added, quietly enough that only I could hear, "And Tyler? Yeah? Try not to hide in any closets today. HR hates surprises." He didn't even look back as he walked away, but I caught the smirk. Small, quick, lethal. By lunch, I was a mess. Every time he passed by my desk, I felt it. The weight of his gaze, the hint of a smile that said, "I remember everything." The worst part? He was acting perfectly normal with everyone else. To them, he was just the cool, collected CEO. To me, he was the man who'd seen way too much of me and somehow made it feel like an inside joke. By 3 o'clock, I was certain I was losing my mind. And then, as I was leaving a meeting, his voice brushed past my ear again. "You're still tense," he said softly, close enough that only I could hear, "almost like you're hiding something." I turned, heartbeat wild. "You're enjoying this?" That smirk again. "Oh, absolutely." He walked away, leaving me standing there, trying to remember how oxygen worked. That night, when I finally sat in bed replaying the day, I realized something terrifying. Adrian Vale wasn't angry. He was interested, and I wasn't sure which of us was in more trouble because of it. A week later. The week after that was hell. Adrian didn't say a word about the closet incident, or the coat, or that godforsaken email. But somehow, he didn't have to. He just started testing me. Suddenly, every project that came through his office needed my input. Every client pitch, my presence, every team assignment. Oh look, Mr. Vale and Tyler again. At first, I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence. Then I noticed the pattern. He'd sit next to me in meetings when there were plenty of empty seats, close enough that our knees brushed when I shifted. He'd lean over my shoulder to review a file, his breath ghosting against my ear, the scent of him messing with my concentration. Once, during a presentation, his hand brushed mine when he passed the clicker. A flicker of contact so small no one else noticed, but it sent a jolt straight through me. By Wednesday, I developed a new coping strategy. Minimal eye contact, short answers, deep breathing. It didn't help much. "You're quiet today," he said during one of our late-night review sessions. "Trying to stay focused," I muttered. He replied, tapping his pen against the desk. "That makes one of us." He said it so casually, like a joke, but the silence that followed was anything but funny. Every night that week, I stayed later and later, sometimes because I had to, sometimes because I couldn't figure out how to leave. And he never told me to go home. He'd sit behind his desk, jacket off, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, a deliberate kind of undone that made it impossible to think straight. The way he looked at me wasn't unprofessional. It was undeniable. A few nights later, The office was mostly dark, city lights spilling in through the glass walls, humming faintly with the kind of quiet that felt like a warning. I was waiting for the elevator when I heard him behind me. Working late again? My stomach dropped. Someone's gotta keep the place running. He came closer, not touching, but close enough that the space between us charged like static. You could have gone home hours ago. You could have told me to. Would you have listened? I turned, ready to joke, to deflect, but his expression stopped me cold. He wasn't teasing this time. Do you regret it? He asked softly. I blinked. What, getting caught? He shook his head, slow, deliberate. No. He took one step closer, his voice dropping lower. Being seen. The air between us tightened. I could feel the hum of the elevator at my back, the warmth of him in front of me. It felt like being trapped between sense and surrender. Adrian. I started, but my voice cracked halfway through his name. He didn't hesitate. His hand came up, brushing my jaw. Barely a touch, but enough. And then he kissed me. It wasn't careful this time. It wasn't calculated. It was hungry, like weeks of restraint finally snapping. I could taste everything we weren't supposed to be his control, my panic, the fire we'd both been pretending wasn't there. When he finally pulled back, I was shaking. From adrenaline, from the way his hand lingered against my throat. From how much I wanted him to do it again. We stood there, breathing the same uneven air. That was, I began. A mistake, he finished, voice rough. We said it together the second time, never again. He nodded. I nodded. We both lied. A few days later. It started with a notification, then another, then about 50 more. By the time I opened my phone, my heart was already sinking. A photo, blurry, grainy, but unmistakable. I walked out of the office building at midnight in Adrian's coat. Adrian is right behind me. The caption, late night strategy meeting. Boss goals were scandal. My stomach dropped so fast, it might have hit the basement. By 9 a.m., everyone in the company had seen it. By noon, I couldn't walk to the coffee machine without feeling eyes follow me. Whispers behind cubicles. Snickers when I passed, and when HR called to say, the board's requested an internal review, my hands started shaking. I didn't even have time to figure out what to do before the message came through. From Avail subject, my office, now. Adrian was standing by the window when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight. The skyline behind him looked sharp enough to cut. Shut the door, he said quietly. I did. The sound clicked like a verdict. You think I leaked it? I asked before he could. His head turned, quick, eyes flashing. No, but they will. The way he said it told me exactly who he meant. The board. The vultures in suits who'd been circling him for years. They're going to spin this, he said, pacing now. Make it look like I've crossed a line, that I can't be trusted with my staff, or my position. I wanted to tell him it'd blow over that people would forget, but even I didn't believe that. He stopped suddenly, looking at me, really looking. The anger in his face shifted, softened. Then let me protect you, he said quietly. The room felt too small, my throat too tight. I don't need, I started. You do, he cut in, stepping closer. Because they won't care about the truth, Tyler. They'll destroy you first to get to me. There it was again, that impossible thing in his voice. Not pity, not guilt, something deeper, warmer, dangerous. And I didn't know what was worse anymore, being ruined or being cared for by the man I was trying so damn hard not to fall for. 2 days later. It happened faster than I could stop it. One careless sentence. One overheard conversation in the break room. One stupid friend who couldn't keep his mouth shut. That's all it took for the truth to crawl its way back to Adrian. By the time I got to his office, the door was already half open. He was standing behind his desk, tie loosened, coat off, eyes unreadable. "Close the door," he said, voice low. I did. Slowly. My palms were sweating. There was a beat of silence, long enough to make me hope he didn't know. Then he turned his laptop around. On the screen was a message thread. "My friends, the night of the party, the dare. Bet you won't sneak into the CEO's office. Watch me. Get a pic as proof." The words stared back at me like a confession carved in stone. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Adrian, so it was a game to you." His voice wasn't raised. That somehow made it worse. No, it wasn't. "You broke into my office for a dare?" I took a shaky step forward. "It wasn't like that. You think I risked everything for a joke?" His voice finally cracked. Sharp, angry, hurt. "Do you have any idea what I've done to keep this quiet? What's it costing me right now? Please, don't." That one word hit harder than a shout. He turned away, shoulders rigid, jaw tight. For the first time since I'd known him, Adrian Vale looked tired. Not furious, not cold, just tired. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," I said quietly. "It was stupid. I was stupid. But everything after that night, that wasn't a game. Not for me." He didn't move, didn't look back, just straightened his tie, slipped his jacket on, and said flatly, "We'll keep things professional from now on." My heart cracked open. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat wouldn't work. He walked past me, close enough that I caught the faint scent of his cologne, cedar and coffee, and everything I'd started to crave. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and I stood there in his office, the same one where it all started, realizing that for the first time since that night, he wasn't looking at me at all. A few days later. The boardroom feels colder than usual. Maybe it's the silence, or the way every suit in the room is looking at Adrian like he's already guilty. He's standing at the head of the table, calm, composed, unreadable. But I can see the tightness in his jaw, the flicker of exhaustion behind his eyes. They've been talking about me for 20 minutes straight, and I'm sitting right here like a ghost no one wants to acknowledge. Inappropriate conduct between a superior and subordinate, someone says. The optics alone are unacceptable. Optics, that's what they call it when they're too polite to say scandal. Adrian doesn't defend himself. He just takes it, every accusation, every insinuation, until something in me snaps. "Stop," I say. It comes out louder than I meant. Every head turns toward me. "I know you're trying to protect the company's image," I continue, voice trembling but steady enough. "But you should at least get the story right." The chairman frowns. "Mr. Hayes." "No," I cut in. "You don't get to drag his name through this without hearing mine." The air thickens. "He didn't touch me until weeks later," I say, each word like a heartbeat. "And it wasn't against my will." A silence follows, sharp, suffocating. Someone clears their throat. Someone else mutters about HR procedures and conflicts of interest. But all I can see is Adrian. His head bowed slightly, eyes fixed on me, expression unreadable. "It's messy," I add quietly. "And it's real. But if you think suspending him fixes that, you're wrong." No one says anything after that. Not really. The meeting dissolves in murmurs and uneasy looks. And when Adrian finally walks out, he doesn't look back once. Later that night. It's raining when he shows up at my apartment that night. There's a knock, then another. Then I open the door and see him, soaked from the downpour, tie loose, eyes tired in a way that hits somewhere deep in my chest. "You didn't have to do that," he says quietly. "I know," I reply. "I wanted to." He steps inside without waiting for an invitation. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The city hums outside. My heart won't slow down. "I thought they'd fire you," he admits. "You shouldn't have had to stand up for me." "Maybe not," I say, "but you stood up for me first." That pulls a faint broken laugh out of him. The kind that hurts to hear. He runs a hand through his hair, glancing around my apartment like he's trying to anchor himself. Then, softer, "You should transfer departments. It'd be safer for you." There it is, the line he always hides behind. Logic, protection distance. I shake my head. No. "Tyler, you're not my boss outside this office, Adrian." That makes him pause. He looks at me, really looks, like he's seeing something he's not sure he can handle. Then what am I? The question hangs there, heavy between us. I take a breath, close the space between us, just enough for my voice to drop. "Trouble," I whisper. The kind I keep running toward. For a second, the mask cracks. His lips twitch like he wants to smile, but can't. And in the quiet that follows, everything unsaid hums between us. Electric, dangerous, and so damn alive. A week later. I didn't expect to see him again so soon. But a week later, my phone buzzed with a message. From a veil subject. "Can we talk?" When I walked into his office that night, it wasn't like before. No smirk, no armor, just Adrian. Tie undone, sleeves rolled, city lights spilling gold over his desk. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. Then he exhaled softly, almost like he'd been holding his breath for days. "Tyler," he said, voice low. "You shouldn't be here." "Then why did you ask me to come?" That got him. His shoulders tensed. He turned, slowly, eyes meeting mine, green and stormy under the dim office light. For a long second, neither of us spoke. The air between us was too full of everything we hadn't said. Finally, he sighed. "Because I don't know how to stop caring about something that could ruin us both." That hit like a punch to the ribs. I stepped closer, heart in my throat. "You call it ruin. I call it real." He laughed softly, no humor, just exhaustion. "You really think this is that simple?" "I don't think anything about you is simple," I said. "You make me nervous. You make me angry. You make me..." I stopped. The word hung unspoken. He waited. "Want to be better," I finished quietly. Adrian's expression flickered. That perfect control he always had, slipping for just a heartbeat. He looked away, jaw tight. "You drive me insane," he murmured. "Do you know that?" I smiled faintly. "Pretty sure it's mutual." He shook his head, stepping closer until the space between us was just breath. "I haven't stopped thinking about that night," he said softly. "Not because you were naked, though, God, that image is hard to forget, but because you looked terrified, and all I wanted was to make sure no one ever made you look like that again. Not even me." Something inside me just broke. Because under all that power, all that composure, was someone who cared. Too much, too deeply. "I trust you," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "That's what scares me most." He met my eyes, and for once, didn't hide, then stop running. So I did. When he kissed me, it wasn't sharp or rushed like I'd imagined. It was slow, careful, like he was asking, not taking. And when I kissed him back, it felt like coming home to something I didn't know I'd been missing. We broke apart, breathless. His hand still lingered at the side of my neck, thumb tracing the edge of my jaw. "This is madness," he whispered. "Yeah," I breathed, smiling. "But at least we're both in it." He laughed quietly, the first real laugh I'd ever heard from him. The kind that made his eyes soften and the years of tension fall away. "I'm in trouble, aren't I?" he said. "Completely." And I kissed him again, because, for once, I could. A few weeks later. By the time the dust settled, things found their strange, secret balance. We were careful, discreet smiles, quiet lunches, lingering glances no one was supposed to notice. The office still whispered, but no one had proof he was still my boss. Still, the man who terrified the board and made interns scatter. But when it was just us, he'd steal my coffee, roll his sleeves, and ask if I'd eaten like he wasn't supposed to care. And sometimes he'd still tease me about that night. "You know," he said one evening, leaning against his desk, "I did buy a new one." I looked up from the reports. "A new what?" "Closet," he said, deadpan. I blinked. "You're joking." "A bigger one," he added, lips curving, "in case you ever want to hide again." I grinned. "Or in case you want to catch me again." He tilted his head, his smile turning soft. "Exactly." And when he reached across the desk to brush his fingers against mine, just barely, I thought, maybe some mistakes are worth making twice. A few months later. It's been a few months since the chaos. The whispers have faded. The gossips found new prey. And somehow, life, or whatever this version of it is, feels steady again. Adrian and I have gotten good at being careful. No lingering looks in the hallway, no touching in elevators. Just long glances across meeting tables and quiet smiles no one else notices. But outside those walls, it's different. Outside, he's not my boss, just Adrian. The man who somehow manages to make both my heart and my coffee race. Tonight, I'm at a rooftop bar with the same group of idiots who started it all. They're halfway through their second round of drinks when one of them laughs and says, "Hey, remember that dare?" I choke on my soda. "Which one?" "You know which one," another chimes in. "The one that got you in your boss's office at midnight." I roll my eyes, pretending to groan, but my smile gives me away. "Yeah," I say, scrolling through my phone. There's a picture from last week. Adrian's coat draped over my shoulders at a gala, his hand at my back, both of us trying, and failing, not to look too obvious. "Yeah," I repeat softly. "Best mistake I ever made." They laugh, thinking I'm joking. I don't correct them. My phone buzzes. "Adrian, dinner in my office again?" I grin, typing back. "Sure, just don't forget to lock the door this time." 3 dots appear. Then, "Wouldn't dream of it." I slip my phone back into my pocket, leaning back in my chair as the city glows below us. If someone had told me months ago that a stupid dare and a broken space heater would lead to this, I'd have called them insane. But now I know better. Some risks are worth taking. Some dares are worth doing. And some doors are meant to be opened, even if you're naked when they swing wide. The end be honest. If your boss looked like that, would you hide? Or hope he catches you? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.